Imagine a world turned upside down by the discovery of a 2,000-year-old Bible that reveals shocking truths about humanity. This ancient text, hidden by the church and preserved by chance, has the power to change everything. The Book of Enoch, forgotten for over 1,000 years, has now reappeared. Just a few months ago in Ethiopia, it became clear how important this scripture is for humanity and why it has returned now. What secrets about our origins does this ancient book hold? Join us as we uncover the hidden truths the Catholic Church doesn't want you to know. Hidden history. In ancient texts today, many people feel that traditional explanations from churches and scientists don't quite fit the evidence we're seeing. Around the world, there's a growing belief that the story of human history might be very different from what we've been taught. One key example is the Book of Enoch, a text that was once highly regarded within the church, but later removed from the Bible due to its controversial content. It wasn't until the 18th century, when humanism was gaining momentum and science started breaking away from religious control, that parts of this book were rediscovered. The Book of Enoch, with its tales of fallen angels and giant beings called Nephilim, has dramatically altered the Christian view of the world and offered surprising new insights into our humanity. Even though it played a significant role in early Christianity, the Book of Enoch was left out of the official Bible. This raises a big question. Why was a text that was once so influential and respected pushed aside and nearly forgotten? This ancient text challenges the usual biblical stories and presents a rather dark view of humanity's future, talking about world-ending events and divine judgments that might befall us. These chilling predictions, while unsettling, push us to reflect deeply on the consequences of our actions. Another fascinating aspect of the Book of Enoch is its tale of the Nephilim, a fierce race born from the union of fallen angels and human women. This story upends traditional notions of good and evil and introduces a cosmic order quite different from what religious leaders usually teach. The book is also said to contain magical spells and forbidden knowledge that could either empower or bring ruin to those who seek it. It hints at lost ancient technologies and hidden truths that might change our view of the world. And there's more. The Bible itself isn't always straightforward or gentle. It's filled with strange and sometimes violent stories, revealing issues like violence and injustice. This raises a big question. Why was the Book of Enoch left out of the Bible? Who was Enoch, and why does his story spark so much curiosity? Enoch is mentioned in several religious traditions, but he's not often discussed in regular church teachings, despite his important role. In the Old Testament and the Jewish Tanakh, which are quite similar, Enoch is described as the seventh generation from Adam, the father of Methuselah, and the great-grandfather of Noah. There's a well-known line from Genesis that says, "And Enoch walked with God, and he was no more, for God took him away." This mysterious statement has led to much speculation about what it means to walk with God and what happened when God took him away. Many interpret this to mean that Enoch didn't die like most people, but was instead taken alive into heaven by God. In Jewish Kabbalah, Enoch is transformed into the archangel Metatron, a powerful and unique figure who is especially favored by God and envied by other angels because he was once human. It's quite intriguing that someone with such a distinct biblical story was deliberately excluded by the church. Although Enoch is mentioned in the New Testament, his book was never included in the Christian Bible. This makes his role seem almost insignificant, despite him being the only person who is said to have ascended to God while still alive. In Islamic tradition, Enoch is known as Idris. The Quran mentions Idris several times, praising him as a prophet and a righteous and truthful man. Similar to Enoch, Idris is believed to have been taken up to heaven, underscoring his special status with God. Additional stories outside the Quran highlight Idris's wisdom, his contributions to scripture and science, and his role as a pioneering prophet. For centuries, the Book of Enoch was kept hidden, preserved by monks in Ethiopia, while Western churches sought to forget it. However, historians rediscovered this extraordinary text in Africa, bringing it back into the spotlight. The Ethiopian Christian Church, which follows ancient scriptures and traditions, played a key role in preserving this book. By the 18th century, Enoch's writings had made their way back to Europe and began emerging from the shadows of church history, moving through the hands of mystics, scholars, and researchers. Today, many turn to Enoch's writings to uncover the true origins of humanity, highlighted by God's special affection for Enoch, whom he chose as his scribe. It's believed that many early Christian writings ended up in the Abyssinia region of East Africa, where they have been carefully preserved. The Ethiopian Church even claims to hold the original texts of the Ten Commandments in the Ark of the Covenant, suggesting they have maintained the authentic scriptures and messages of the early church. Stay tuned for more. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church, one of the oldest Christian denominations in the world, traces its origins back to the 1st century AD. Christianity is said to have been introduced to Ethiopia by the queen's eunuch treasurer, and it was established as the state religion in the 4th century by Frumentius, Ethiopia's first consecrated bishop. This church holds several unique books that aren't found in other Christian denominations and maintains traditions that have remained remarkably consistent since the early days of Christianity. Historians today often turn to Africa to uncover these untouched aspects of Christian history. For instance, the oldest version of the Book of Enoch is preserved in Ge'ez, an ancient Ethiopian language. Translating Ge'ez is relatively straightforward for linguists, similar to translating Latin. Because of this, the versions of the Book of Enoch found in Europe today are believed to be genuine and unaltered. With Enoch's stories fresh in our minds, we'll explore how the Ethiopian Church preserves ancient wisdom and its perspectives on good and evil. Early Christian texts rediscovered. This church not only preserves unique texts like the Book of Enoch, but also ancient practices and rituals that closely resemble those of Christianity's earliest followers from nearly 2,000 years ago. Our current understanding of Christianity has become complex due to numerous translations and selective editing by church authorities over the centuries. In Ethiopia, the Book of Enoch is believed to shed light on the origins of evil and sin, portraying humans as beings capable of both great good and great evil, with only love and devotion to God guiding them toward righteousness. Ethiopian Orthodox scholars view these dynamics of good and evil as natural elements of the universe, with our role being to resist evil and strive for goodness. The Book of Enoch presents a world filled with spiritual visions and profound revelations about the ultimate destiny of the soul and the purpose of creation. Despite these deep insights, the Catholic Church often disregards the Book of Enoch, and even independent church scholars frequently dismiss it due to its unconventional descriptions of angels and the end times, which diverge significantly from mainstream Western Christian theology. Critics argue that the book's unusual content suggests it might have dubious origins. The history of the Bible is quite intriguing. In the centuries following Christ, many texts about Jesus' life, the teachings of the apostles, and other spiritual writings circulated among Christian communities. These texts were accepted to varying degrees. Key writings, like the four Gospels, the Acts of the Apostles, and Paul's letters, became central to church teachings. However, differing interpretations led to debates about which texts should be officially included in the Bible. As a result, defining a clear set of scriptures became crucial to avoid misleading teachings. Initially, the lists of approved scriptures were broad, but over time, they became more restrictive. At the councils of Hippo in 393 and Carthage in 397, the New Testament as we know it was formalized, with 27 books being recognized by all Christian communities. The criteria for inclusion were strict, focusing on apostolic origins and alignment with accepted beliefs, which led to the exclusion of texts that didn't meet these standards. But wait, there's more. Critics argue that the selection of biblical texts was based on shaping a specific narrative, sometimes more focused on control than on providing true spiritual freedom. Allegedly, thousands of texts, including lesser-known Gospels and early Christian writings, are hidden away in the Vatican archives, leading to questions about their exclusion from the Bible. In the mid-1940s, many scrolls with old Christian and Jewish texts were found in a cave by the Dead Sea. Some, like the Book of Enoch, offer a different perspective on early Christianity and Jesus' life. The term Apocrypha refers to texts related to Jesus' life and the Old Testament events, written from around 1200 BC to the 2nd century AD. These texts were not included when the Bible was compiled and are not officially recognized as part of the canonical scriptures. Among the Apocrypha, there are variations of familiar stories from both the Old and New Testaments, but some texts present views that significantly diverge from mainstream teachings, especially those of the Catholic Church. They offer alternative perspectives on the Messiah and biblical events. When the Bible was first compiled in the 3rd century AD, no one who witnessed the events described was still alive. The canonization process, which is still in use today, was likely influenced by factors beyond just preserving an accurate historical record. From the start, there was an element of control and manipulation in shaping the Christian narrative. Today, researchers believe that due to numerous translations, the original meanings of these texts may have been altered multiple times. One of the most notable excluded writings is the Gospel of Thomas, discovered in 1945 at Nag Hammadi. This gospel is seen as a nearly complete account of Jesus' life, but it presents some events in a way that differs from the canonical Gospels. Although not recognized by mainstream church authorities, Thomas is considered one of the most authentic early writers. He depicts a relatable Jesus who simplifies his teachings to just 2 commandments: to speak and act sincerely. In the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus emphasizes compassion and kindness. The texts, dating from 60 to 250 AD, begin with the statement, "These are the hidden words that Jesus spoke, which Judas Thomas wrote down. Whoever understands the 114 verses of this scripture will overcome death and find the way to immortality." The Bishop of Alexandria was notably opposed to certain Gospels, including those of Thomas, Philip, and Truth. Instead of destroying them as he had been instructed, their supporters hid these texts away, preserving them for nearly 2,000 years. Additionally, Mary Magdalene and other women were not given much prominence in the early church. Women's roles were often minimized in the scriptures, biased views against women were included, and female apostles or disciples were overlooked. However, lesser-known writings reveal that Jesus had many women around him and had a significant connection with Mary Magdalene. While today's Bible depicts Mary Magdalene as a sinner, some texts suggest she was actually a close companion or even a partner of Jesus. The Gospel of Mary focuses more on the aftermath of Jesus' death rather than his personal life. The first Apocalypse of James, likely written in the 3rd century by followers of Valentinianism, contains alleged conversations between Jesus and his brother James, discussing hidden codes that could unlock heaven. Emperor Constantine was not fond of these ideas and had the Apocalypse officially banned in the 4th century. Nevertheless, this document also survived and was rediscovered in 1945 at Nag Hammadi. After exploring Ethiopia's special texts, we'll look into other forgotten writings and strange translations that reshape our understanding of the Bible. Giants in Ancient Lands and the Books of Adam delve into the lives and challenges of Adam and Eve, particularly their encounters with Satan. These stories come in various languages and versions, offering insights into life after paradise from Adam and Eve's perspective, including mentions of the Nephilim, giants born from human women, also referenced in the official Bible, and Seth, their 3rd son. Enoch, one of the Old Testament's 7 patriarchs, is briefly mentioned in the Bible despite his unique role. He was directly related to Noah and Jesus, and, notably, was taken to heaven alive by God because of his virtuous life. His significant book was excluded from the Bible, likely because the church wanted to keep the idea of ascending to heaven as a unique concept. Aristeas's letter discusses the initial translation of Moses's books into Greek and suggests that these early translations were fraught with errors, hinting that the Bible as we know it might differ significantly from its original form. The letter claims that these translations were completed in just 72 days, a timeline that many experts find difficult to believe. Despite this, the Catholic Church maintains the accuracy and legitimacy of these translations. The Solomon Islands, located east of Papua New Guinea, are renowned for their stunning natural beauty and coral reefs. There's a local belief that these islands were once inhabited by the Nephilim, giant beings said to have ruled the area around 1,000 years ago. The first Europeans, led by Álvaro de Mendaña, arrived in 1568, attracted by the potential for great wealth, and named the islands after King Solomon, famed for his riches. Today, extensive mining operations have caused environmental problems, and locals warn about the risks of disturbing the ancient giants believed to have once lived there. There's more to the story. Anthropologist Marius Boireon, who married into the local culture of the Solomon Islands, has extensively studied the legends of giants on the islands. In his 2010 book, he describes these giants as about 10 feet tall, with distinctive features and complex social structures. Boireon also recounts local tales of people being taken by a particularly fearsome giant, underscoring the strong local belief in their existence. The Solomon Islands, a rugged and remote paradise of dense jungles and secluded mountains, remain largely untouched by modern influence. They are considered a hidden world, and the giants are thought to still inhabit these secluded areas. One of the most striking tales from the islands involves a young girl named Mungo. She vanished as a child and reappeared 25 years later, pregnant. Mungo revealed that she had lived as the wife of a giant and had a son who, due to his giant-like appearance, was tragically killed at the age of 5. This traumatic experience left Mungo deeply distressed for the rest of her life. Local lore suggests that some islanders know the location of her son's grave, but no one has attempted to unearth it, leaving the story shrouded in mystery. Ancient scriptures of the Old Testament briefly mention the Nephilim, describing them as the offspring of giants and human women. Their fathers are often depicted as fallen angels or, in some interpretations, extraterrestrial beings from the skies. The nature of the Nephilim varies across religious texts. In Christianity, they are sometimes seen as mighty heroes with immense strength. However, Jewish texts portray them as malevolent beings who brought violence and destruction to earth. Despite their human lineage, these giants are often depicted as embodiments of hate and aggression. In apocalyptic visions, particularly in the Book of Revelation, there is a prophecy about an army of 200 million strange beings that will unleash a catastrophic plague, destroying a third of the world's population. Some scholars believe this apocalyptic army is indirectly connected to the Nephilim, suggesting that these giants might play a role as harbingers of doom in the final days. The exclusion of the Book of Enoch from the Bible in the 3rd century was because church authorities believed it lacked divine inspiration, unlike the accepted Gospels, which were thought to be divinely guided. Enoch, an important biblical figure and great-grandfather of Noah, was said to have been so favored by God that he was taken to heaven alive, bypassing death. This ascension story challenges the unique divine status attributed to Jesus, potentially leading to Enoch's exclusion from the standard biblical canon. However, some Eastern Christian texts have preserved Enoch's writings, suggesting that spiritual practices might enable divine access within one's lifetime. This idea aligns with modern interpretations that view ascension tales as symbolic of spiritual enlightenment, a concept also reflected in Islamic teachings where Jesus is seen as a prophet who continued his teachings after surviving crucifixion. For those who are not familiar with symbolic interpretations, the Codex Seraphinianus might appear as one of the strangest books ever created, possibly the work of a fantastical imagination. Created by Italian artist Luigi Serafini in the 1980s, it features surreal illustrations that transform human forms in bizarre ways and texts that seem meaningful but are undecipherable. The codex doesn't aim to convey hidden truths, but explores the limits of imagination and artistic expression, challenging our perceptions of reality and the written word. From ancient manuscripts to enigmatic texts, we delve into the strange and magical books that have fascinated scholars and influenced spiritual beliefs. Enoch, the man-turned-angel, is a fascinating topic, especially when paired with the Soiga book, also known as the Will of God. This medieval Latin manuscript captivated John Dee, a renowned scholar and advisor to Queen Elizabeth I. The Soiga book is filled with mystical content, including spells, rituals, and intricate descriptions of celestial hierarchies. Dee devoted much of his life to decoding the book, enchanted by its complex blend of magic and spirituality. Despite his efforts, he never fully deciphered its contents. The book's disappearance and partial recovery in modern libraries highlight its profound impact and the esteemed status of its author. Written in flawless Latin, the manuscript hints at the involvement of a highly educated and possibly wealthy individual, continuing to capture the imagination of scholars and mystics with its enigmatic and rich content. Enoch, also known as Hanok in the early parts of the Old Testament, is a figure steeped in intriguing stories. His name likely comes from the Canaanite word Hanok, meaning witness or initiate, highlighting his important role. Although Enoch is only briefly mentioned in the Bible, he is notable for being taken to heaven by God without experiencing death, a rare and remarkable event. Enoch's family background is quite fascinating. He is a direct descendant of Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve, and an ancestor of Noah, and through a longer lineage, of Jesus of Nazareth. Despite these impressive connections, Enoch is not widely discussed in major Christian texts, such as those of the Roman Catholic and Protestant churches. However, Jewish traditions and some Christian Slavic texts have dedicated entire books to this remarkable prophet. Around a century ago, a well-preserved book of Enoch was discovered in the Qumran caves near the Dead Sea. This book delves deeper into Enoch's story, describing how God transformed him into an extraordinary being. This transformation suggests a divine closeness that Enoch shared with Jesus. This perspective challenges the traditional Christian view of Jesus as the unique Son of God who ascended to heaven. Enoch's story introduces the idea that he, too, received a special honor, questioning the notion that Jesus was the only one to experience such an event. In the book of Genesis, Enoch is also listed among 10 patriarchs known for their extraordinarily long lives. Enoch's life is indeed remarkable and filled with intriguing details. His father, Jared, was 162 years old when Enoch was born and lived for another 800 years. Enoch himself was 65 when his son Methuselah was born, who famously lived for over 900 years. Enoch then lived an additional 300 years, walking closely with God. At the age of 365, he was taken up to heaven alive, a rare event that sets him apart from other biblical figures. The term Enoch's ascension, often used in modern contexts, such as funerals, originally held a much more profound and specific meaning in biblical terms. Unlike other patriarchs whose deaths are clearly described, Enoch is uniquely noted for being taken to himself by God, indicating a direct and special departure from life. In the New Testament, there's little mention of either Enoch's rise or his importance in the mainline churches, which is odd. His story grows even bigger in the book of Enoch, where despite some resistance from other heavenly beings, he is promoted to the rank of an angel, specifically Metatron. This transformation from man to angel and his role as a sort of divine go-between is a special honor not widely recognized outside of Jewish tradition. Enoch's story raises big questions about why such an impressive tale hasn't been featured more prominently in the Bible. His progression from a man to a high-ranking angelic figure suggests layers of divine storytelling that challenge usual views and remain intriguingly underexplored in Christian teachings. The Book of Enoch is not just a narrative about Enoch, but delves into intense and dramatic themes, especially concerning the origins of evil. According to the book, a group of rebellious angels became disillusioned with their heavenly roles and descended to earth. They engaged in relationships with human women, leading to the birth of giants, immense beings who wreaked havoc across the world. What's particularly intriguing about this text is that it names these angels, specifying who was responsible for the various forms of chaos. Enoch emerges as a standout figure amidst this turmoil. He's depicted as a paragon of righteousness and wisdom, serving as the first prophet who not only championed goodness, but also undertook the monumental task of recording his revelations. According to the Book of Enoch, he authored an impressive 360 books, underscoring his role as a major spiritual figure and a key source of divine wisdom. Enoch's writings, which delve into celestial mechanics and the passage of time, were pivotal in ancient times. However, despite Enoch's esteemed reputation as a scribe, the texts attributed to him were likely composed by later writers, contributing to the ongoing mystery about their origins and the cultural contexts in which they were created. Shifting to other fascinating biblical elements, Leviathan from the Book of Job stands out as a truly mythical figure. This formidable beast, often depicted as a fire-breathing dragon, combines features of a crocodile, snake, and whale. Its breath is described as a dangerous mix of steam and fire, capable of wreaking havoc. The ambiguity surrounding whether Leviathan represents good or evil adds to its intrigue, as it remains a captivating symbol of power and mystery in biblical lore. In exploring these supernatural elements and apocalyptic visions, we encounter the rich tapestry of mythical creatures and dramatic stories that have captivated and terrified people throughout history. Stay tuned as we continue to unravel these enigmatic and awe-inspiring tales. Giants, ghosts, and strange tales. Absolutely, the locusts in the Bible, particularly in the Book of Revelation, are depicted in a way that transcends ordinary pests. These locusts are envisioned as monstrous hybrids with horse-like bodies, scorpion tails, and a terrifying appearance that symbolizes immense and destructive power. Their portrayal as instruments of divine wrath brings a sense of horror that matches their apocalyptic role, reflecting deep-seated fears of uncontrollable and catastrophic forces. The four horsemen of the apocalypse are similarly profound. Each horseman represents a distinct aspect of the end times: conquest, war, famine, and death. Their appearance follows the opening of the seven seals, marking the commencement of global upheaval. These figures have resonated deeply across different eras, symbolizing universal anxieties about the end of the world and the suffering that might accompany it. Their symbolism became particularly poignant during the Middle Ages, a time plagued by disease, war, and famine, reflecting the real-world fears of those living through such crises. Together, these stories of locusts, horsemen, and other supernatural entities are more than just dramatic tales. They encapsulate profound human concerns about morality, justice, and the nature of existence. Through these vivid and often terrifying images, ancient texts explore the dualities of good and evil, order and chaos, providing a window into the anxieties and beliefs that have shaped human history and spirituality. All right, let's talk about the beast, a terrifying creature described in John's visions. Imagine something straight out of a fantasy movie. This beast looked a bit like a leopard, had the paws of a bear, and a mouth as scary as a lion's. To top it off, a dragon gave it a bunch of power, along with a throne and serious authority. One of its heads seemed to have been fatally injured, but somehow it healed up just fine. This beast, alongside another fearsome one, is supposed to show up at the end of the world, bringing all sorts of trouble to humanity. The first beast is super offensive and just downright nasty, It causes a lot of suffering and drags people into awful situations. The other one, representing a false prophet, isn't about outright destruction, but is more about slow, sneaky damage, leading people to their ruin without them even noticing at first. Both of these beasts are connected to the number 666 and the figure known as the Antichrist. These bad guys are part of a bigger, darker force that opposes everything good, and they're destined to bring a lot of pain and chaos. But, according to Christian stories, there's hope because Christ's love is supposed to be strong enough to save everyone in the end. The ultimate showdown has Christ beating these monsters and throwing them into a lake of fire, which saves the planet from their terror. Let's delve into the Nephilim from the book of Genesis. These mysterious figures were the children of giants and human women. Originally, they were wild and chaotic, causing trouble everywhere they went. Over time, though, their image softened, and they were seen more like just really big, strong humans, rather than troublemakers. Some legends even trace their roots back to Seth, Adam's third son. What's really interesting is that later stories link them to famous Greek heroes like Hercules and Achilles, suggesting they might have been their ancestors. And today, some people even wonder if the Nephilim were actually hybrids between humans and aliens, blending ancient myths with modern alien theories. Now, let's talk about witches and magical women in biblical times. They weren't viewed favorably at all. The book of Exodus is quite harsh, saying that magicians shouldn't be allowed to live, which led to many innocent people, like healers and herbalists, being persecuted during the Middle Ages because they were misunderstood or different. Leviticus takes it even further, declaring that those who practiced magic should be stoned to death, showing how unwelcome these practices were. There's also the story of Queen Jezebel, who was seen as an evil sorceress. She was accused of using her powers to manipulate people and influence wars, and ultimately, she faced a severe punishment from the religious authorities of her time. Ghosts are mentioned a lot in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, where the world is full of supernatural beings like demons and angels. One well-known story is about King Saul, who was so desperate in his battle against enemies that he ended up calling up a spirit for help. In the New Testament, there's a twist where people think Jesus is a ghost when they see him walking on water. They were really scared until Jesus showed them he was real and not just a spirit. Now, let's dive into a wild story about Nebuchadnezzar II, the king of Babylon. He got too full of himself and had a terrifying dream. He asked the prophet Daniel for help, and Daniel told him he would have to live like a wild animal for 7 years to learn humility. In some tales, Nebuchadnezzar turns into a wolf man, showing how these stories mix human and animal traits to teach lessons about pride and divine power. Behemoth is another biblical creature. It's not considered evil, but is incredibly powerful. Described as a giant plant eater that no one can defeat, it's often thought to be something like a rhino or hippo. Some people even believe Behemoth, along with another creature called Leviathan, were actually dinosaurs. This fits with a belief held by some Christian fundamentalists who think humans and dinosaurs lived at the same time, based on a view of the world being only a few thousand years old. Could this ancient Bible be a groundbreaking revelation, or just another elaborate hoax? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating insights.